all.
Shalom.
Welcome to Shebrew, studying the Torah portion through the lens of relationships. We are in Leviticus, and we are glad you are here. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of new videos coming out. And let's dig in.
So the portion that we're looking at this week is called Parasha Zav. That basically means command. You may recognize it from the Hebrew word mitzvah or command. And it's in Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 6, verse 8 through 8:36. So we're going to go ahead and dig in. We're going to look at chapter 6, verse 8 through 13. And Adonai spoke to Moshe, saying, Command Aharon and his sons, saying, This is the Torah of the ascending offering. This is the ascending offering, because it is burned on the altar all night until morning, and the fire of the altar is kept burning on it. And the priest shall put on his linen garment, and put his linen trousers on his body, and shall take up the ashes of the ascending offering, which the fire has consumed on the altar, and shall put them beside the altar. And he shall take off his garments and put on other garments, and shall bring the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. And the fire on the altar is kept burning on it. It is not put out. And the priest shall burn wood on it every morning, and arrange the ascending offering on it, and shall burn on it the fat of the peace offerings. Fire is continually kept burning on the altar. It is not put out. So part of the instructions for this olah, the whole burnt offering or ascending offering, is to keep the fire burning on the altar. As verse 13 says, it is not put out. Every day, regardless of circumstance, whether it's Shabbat or a new moon or one of the 7 annual appointed times of Yah, there was a whole burnt offering performed in the morning and between the evenings. And that afternoon offering, the one between the evenings, would continue to burn throughout the night. And then in the morning, fresh wood would be put on the altar and the morning sacrifice. And that would continue to burn until the time of the afternoon and between the evenings. Yeah. So what can we kind of see in this symbolically? This community offering, this offering was for the whole community of Israel. And it was representing the children of Israel giving themselves over completely to Elohim and to his instructions for him. On another facet of that, it can represent the continual fire, can represent that the altar was always kept ready to receive the other offerings of Israel. That is, that Yah was always ready for his people to draw near to his presence.
Yeah. So when we're looking at relationships, because that's the lens that we're looking at when we study these Torah portions, is so through the lens of relationships, what do we see? Well, one of the things is, are you letting your fire burn out in the relationship with one that you have with God, with your fellow humans, that are around you? Do you let different friendships just go away because it's too much work, or because you're lazy, or because maybe you're too busy? You just don't take the time. What about your relationship with your spouse? Are you letting that fire burn? Remember back when you were first courting them and first dating them, you were so excited to be able to talk to them and share with them about your day and what you were learning and what you wanted to go ahead and share and talk to them about. Well, how is it now, 5 years in, 10 years in, 20 years in, 30 years in? Are you still allowing that excitement that you have for that person that you want to go ahead and talk to them? Are they the first person that you want to talk to in the morning? What about going to bed, and having that little pillow talk and just being goofy? What's going on there? So why are you allowing that fire to burn out, and how do you rekindle that fire again? And in a way, it's one foot in front of the other. It's one act of kindness in front of the other to be able to rekindle that fire again.
Yeah, your relationships, just like this fire that was kept burning on the altar, that they require continual attention to be successful and meaningful. We can't allow days to pass without giving our care and attention to the deepest relationships that we hold, particularly with Elohim and also with our spouse, our children, our family, friends, etc. The fire has to be kept burning. So there's 2 aspects to this. We have to make ourselves available to the people we're in relationship with. And we also have to make the effort to draw near to them. Yeah,
we do. We have to be open to allowing them back into our life again, or allowing their presence to come back if we've withdrawn.
Yeah. So another concept that we can kind of take from this, because if you're going to keep a fire burning, most of us have been around campfires and the like at Sukkot and things of that nature. What do you have to do? Especially the guys, we understand this. You have to stoke the fire. We love taking something and poking those flames and just stirring stuff around. But you have to stoke the flames of the relationship, and you have to provide fuel for the relationship, fuel for the fire. It says that in this ascending offering, there would be, the lambs that were put on there twice a day. That's fuel for the fire. There's also wood that was put on in the morning. That's also fuel for the fire. So what are some of the things? What's the fuel that can stoke the flames of relationship?
That's going to be spending quality time with that person, getting to know that person again, finding out, okay, what are your likes? What are your dislikes? What is something new that you've learned in a hobby, and how can I join in regards to that? Going back and being like, okay, so what's their love language again? Is it quality time? Is it touch? Is it acts of service? What is it that they need to feel loved? Not what you need, but what they need. And when you're serving them, you're going to start feeling fulfilled within that, and they're also going to start feeling fulfilled within that relationship as well. And that is a way to poke the fire, to be able to stoke that relationship again.
Definitely. It's all about, taking the steps that make sure that the other person knows that they know that you are there for them and that you desire and you cherish that relationship. So whatever you have to do, and a great way to do that is, as Sarah was saying, is knowing their love language, whether it's quality time or words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, physical touch, or other things. There may be other things that are encapsulated within those. Those are like broad categories, and there's other minor categories within that. But whatever it takes to make them feel loved and feel cherished, and to keep that fire just continuing to burn. It's more like, as Sarah was saying, in the beginning of the relationship, there's that longing for the other person. And how do you keep that longing, just continually burning and being inflamed?
And it's a daily thing. It's not just a once a month kind of thing. Let's go out on our anniversary and sit on our phones, and not talk to each other. No, it's a daily thing. It's a thing that you wake up and you realize, you're like, okay, well, I like to drink coffee. I know they like to go ahead and drink coffee. Let me make them a cup as well and go ahead and bring it to them, and maybe leave it at their bedside. So when they wake up, 5 minutes later or whatever, they're like, oh, I have a fresh cup of coffee right here. That's a nice little act of service that you could go ahead and do for them, and make sure that you're just showing kindness that day. So it's little things like that you could go ahead and do. And as you continue to practice those things daily, it sort of becomes a habit. And then you're sort of looking out for that person every single day, and you're able to rekindle that fire again.
Yeah. And we get this idea of doing it daily from where? From these continual offerings that were brought every day.
Exactly.
That's great. Next, we're going to get into chapter 7. And before we read anything specific in chapter 7, we're just going to give kind of an overview of chapters 6 and 7, where it's giving us some very specific procedures and protocols for the 5 different kinds of offerings, the whole burnt offering, the grain offering, the peace offerings, the sin offerings, the guilt offerings. There's very specific things that that the person who's bringing it is supposed to do, and these chapters deal maybe a little bit more with things that the priest is supposed to do. But Yah is very specific about following these procedures and following these directions. So what is it that we can really, again, take away from that idea that he is has that much attention to detail in the way that he wants us to do things?
Is investigation. It's discovery. It's figuring out, okay, what does my God want? How do I show that I love him and that I care for him and that I'm following him? Well, that's by looking at his commandments and going ahead and doing those things and showing kindness to the fellow humans around me and to animals of his creation. Just because we say be kind to a human doesn't mean you should beat up your dog or your cat. You still need to be nice to them as well. So it's a matter of what do you do to show kindness, and God tells us in his word what we're supposed to go ahead and do. His word, all his scriptures from the beginning of the book to the end of the book is his instructions to us. And we're supposed to go ahead and use that and investigate and be like, okay, how can I be more like Yeshua? How can I go ahead and follow him more? Well, since we're talking about relationships, what do I need to go ahead and do? Mark knows how much creamer I need in my coffee. It's crazy in regards to that, but that was like one of the first things that he honestly learned within like the first like couple weeks of us being married. Even before even being married, he'd be like, taste this. Does this seem right? Is this how much creamer you like? You know, and each time I try a different creamer, because lately I'm into a different creamer again, he's retrying it again and be like, okay, how much creamer do you need in your coffee? You know, so he's always investigating how much do I need to go ahead and have in my coffee. You know, and that is one way for him to be able to investigate who I am and what kind of creamer do I like in my coffee, because I'm very picky when it comes to my coffee. And he knows that. And so he investigates and spends time figuring out what is it that I need to be able to enjoy my cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It's an easy way.
That's just an example. You know,
Yeah.
there's many things that you will do in your relationship, investigating, you know, what it is that, you know, makes your spouse tick, and things that, you know, push their buttons and things that trigger them, and you try to, you know, not do that. I mean, it's all about trying to do things that are pleasing in their eyes. But if you're going to do that, you have to ask questions and investigate.
Yes.
Otherwise, you may spend a lot of your time doing things that aggravate and frustrate them. So,
Yeah.
you know, you want to be on the other side of that.
Yes.
You don't want to be aggravating
No.
and frustrating.
No, you want to spend time with them to be able to figure out, okay, what is it that they like? What do they need? You know, what is it that I can do to make them happy? You know, because you love them and you care for them. And so that's what you want to go ahead and do. And when it comes to a relationship, you know, in the beginning stages of a relationship, you're finding out, what do you like? What don't you like? What are your favorite vacation spots? You know, do you like tomatoes? Do you not like tomatoes? You know, all sorts of any odd question or question you could go ahead and ask. You're learning about that person to be able to find out and be like, okay, well, they don't like this, so maybe they'll like this. Let me go ahead and ask them about that, you know? So a couple months down the road, you're able to go ahead and maybe surprise them with a fun gift because you've been listening, you've been investigating and asking probing questions to be able to find out, okay, this is what they like. I'm going to go ahead and get them this.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, y'all.
Yep.
We're going to focus in now in verses 11 through 15. The one offering that we're going to look at a little bit more in depth here is the peace offering, but more specifically, the peace offering of thanksgiving. So in verse 11 it says, "This is the Torah of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which is brought to Adonai. If he brings it for a thanksgiving, then he shall bring it with the sacrifice of thanksgiving, unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened thin cakes anointed with oil, or cakes of finely blended flour mixed with oil. Besides the cakes, he brings as his offering leavened bread, together with the sacrifice of thanksgiving of his peace offerings. And from it he shall bring one cake from each offering as a contribution to Adonai. To the priest who sprinkles the blood of the peace offerings, it is his. As for the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving, it is eaten the same day it is offered. He does not leave any of it until morning." So one of the reasons that an Israelite would bring a peace offering, it's called a shalamim, is they were giving it as thanksgiving or a show of appreciation for something that Yah had done for them and for their family. Perhaps the thing that Yah had done for them was a part of the covenant agreement, the agreement from Exodus 19, where it says, "You do what I say and I'll take you as my people." So maybe it was part of that covenant agreement, or maybe it was something that even went beyond, you know, that agreement, that responsibility. Either way, the offerer is desiring to celebrate what had happened by sharing a meal, a covenant meal, with Yah and his priest and his family and his friends. So how can we look at this idea of wanting to give thanks and wanting to appreciate things that Yah had done? How can we apply this in our relationship with Elohim and our human relationships? And the idea really is going to be, how is it that you express appreciation to others? How do you express appreciation to Yah? How do you do that to humans? Do you do it with words or with gifts or with your actions? In many ways, showing thanks or appreciation is comparable to the love languages. And by that I mean, can you learn to express appreciation in a way that the other person receives your thanks? You may do some acts of service for them to express their thanks when what they really need is words of affirmation. You may give them a gift when what they really need is your touch or your time, the intimacy. The thing that Yah showed us here is that he gave specific instructions about giving this peace offering of thanksgiving. It was a way for his people to show appreciation to him in the way that he had provided for his need. So we can just look at, and kind of, this is where we're going to get into with our relationships, especially with our spouse, is what can we do today to show appreciation to the people that we are in relationship with, as well as to Elohim, because obviously we can't bring sacrifice offerings today. So, I mean, how can we go about expressing appreciation to the people we're in relationship with?
Yeah. Just saying thank you. Just a kind word, a kind note, to be able to say, hey, thank you for this. Thank you for the encouraging word. Thank you for bringing food to me. Thank you for just being my friend. It's nice to be able to get a note in the mail from somebody that you haven't spoke to for a while and be like, hey, I just appreciate your friendship. I think every person enjoys receiving some type of card along those lines, and they just enjoy that. So when it comes to your spouse, the person that you're spending the rest of your life with, that should be the top person besides God that you want to go ahead and show appreciation to. So what is it that you're doing by showing that appreciation? Is it a chocolate bar on their pillow maybe? Or maybe it's a cute little note, or maybe it's flowers, things like that show appreciation to the person. So what is it that you're doing to be able to show that appreciation and to be able to speak their love language to them?
Definitely. Let's go over to 2 Corinthians chapter 9. Now, just while we're getting there, Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, he's talking in 2 Corinthians 9 about a offering that was being taken up to give to the saints, to the brothers that were there in Jerusalem. That's kind of the context. That this is a place that a lot of people do go to when they're talking about offerings and things of that nature in the Brit Hadashah, in the New Covenant. But we're going to read the latter part of this, which is chapter 9, 10 through 15. It says, "And he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food shall supply and increase the seed you have sown and increase the fruit of your righteousness, being enriched in every way for all simplicity, which works out thanksgiving to Elohim through us. Because the rendering of this service not only supplies the needs of the saints, but also is overflowing through many thanksgivings to Elohim. Through the proof of this service, they esteem or give glory to Elohim on the submission of your confession to the good news of Messiah, in generosity and sharing with them and all men, and by their prayer for you, who long for you because of the exceeding favor or grace of Elohim in you. Thanks also to Elohim for his unspeakable gift."
Yep.
So Paul is talking a lot about thanks and about thanksgiving in here. Using words to express our appreciation, as Sarah said. He said, thanks also to Elohim.
Yeah.
Giving offerings to provide for his people's needs. So, in this thing, they were giving up an offering to provide for the needs of Elohim's people. And in that way, it was going to cause them to be thankful and them to offer up, words of thanks to Elohim for his provision.
Yeah.
Another way that we can show our appreciation to Elohim is to follow his instructions and to do it with the right attitude. That would take us a little bit further back up in this chapter that says, "Let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not of grief nor of necessity, for Elohim loves a joyful giver." So, that's talking more about your attitude and the reason that you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. We could also spend time with him. And that's, time in prayer, time reading his scriptures, the things that he said to us, time with him on the Sabbath and on the festival days. Yeah. So, those are just a few ways that we can express appreciation to Elohim with our words, with offerings, following his instructions with the right attitude, spending time with him. And a lot of these do correlate over to our human relationships,
Yeah.
especially with our spouse or our future spouse.
Yeah.
You know, like Sarah said, words like just saying thank you, or I appreciate that, or I'm grateful for you.
Yeah.
You know, giving offerings or gifts to express appreciation, and this is for specific things that they do for you. You know, just if they do something specifically that just made your day a little bit brighter, you know, you could give them a simple gift.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't have to be extravagant, but, you know, something to show appreciation.
Yeah.
You know, doing quality time with them on date nights or anniversaries or weekend getaways, just ways to celebrate and give thanks.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're the one that's able to do planning for things a little bit better. So, you know, you're giving thanks in a way of like finding a place to go and do this, and let's get away and spend some time together.
Yeah.
And also the part about following instructions, you know, paying attention to their likes and their dislikes, and then trying to follow through on what they ask you to do. All these are ways of expressing appreciation.
Yeah.
And it's really, again, about making sure that they feel appreciated.
Yeah. It is. You know, it's speaking their love language, you know, maybe not necessarily yours, but speaking their love language. And again, it goes back to the part of investigating, figuring out what it is that they need, you know, what it is that they're needing to be able to receive,
Definitely.
you know, because that is going to speak volumes to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just one step. It's one foot in front of the other, you know, I mean, literally like challenge you guys, go out and try it. You know, for you all that have been married for 20 plus years or even 10 years, you know, maybe the fire has kindled down a little bit. Go out, you know, rekindle that fire again, refigure out and be like, try to recreate your first date again, you know, and just enjoy spending time together. Life is short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we transition to this next part of, you know, especially for those who have already been in a marriage relationship for some time, but you're trying to find a way to rekindle that fire, rekindle that connection that you had at the beginning. So we're going to go into chapter 8, and chapter 8 is about it's called the ordination ceremony. Ordination may not be the best word, we know that, but it's something that we understand. It is the installation, if you will, of Aaron and his sons as the priest to Elohim on behalf of Israel. So it's taking them from one status and transitioning them to another status. Now, in part of the ordination or installation, Moshe is going to use blood to do something. So we're going to read that now. It's in verse 22 through 24. And it says, he brought the second ram, the ram of ordination, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram, and it was slain. And Moshe took some of its blood and put it on the tip of Aaron's right ear, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. And he brought near the sons of Aaron, and Moshe put some of the blood on the tips of their right ears, and on the thumbs of their right hands, and on the big toes of their right feet. And he brought near the sons of Aaron, I'm sorry, I got that already. And Moshe sprinkled the blood on the altar all around. So basically, you know, what we've got is Moshe is using this blood of the ram of ordination to establish a connection between the priests and the altar of sacrifice. He takes the blood, he applies it on their right ear and on their right thumb and on their right toes. I'm not going to show you my big right toe. And then he sprinkles all the remaining blood all around the altar. And this establishes a blood connection between the priests and the altar. Also of significance is the parts of the body that the blood is applied to. The ear representing the receiving of Yah's instructions. And the thumb represents the doing of Yah's instructions. And the big toe, which represents a walk or a lifestyle of hearing and doing Yah's instructions. So that's just a little side piece. But I mean, that's things that we also need to be doing in our relationships. We need to be hearing and listening to what our covenant partner is saying. We need to be doing, you know, what they're saying, not just once, but we also need to have a walk or a lifestyle of listening to them and acting appropriately. It's that word Shema, which we've spoken to you much about. You know, the two major words that probably we've spoken about the most, Shema and Shamar. Well, we're seeing the Shema here, listening and responding appropriately.
That's good.
You know, so In some of our previous videos, we've looked at this ordination process of the priest. It was a time of transition from one state of being to another, in this case, from being a normal member of Israel to being the set apart or the holy position of priest to Elohim. Now, we previously related this to the marriage ceremony where there's two single people and they are now transitioning to one married couple. Part of the wedding ceremony may involve other rites of passage that establish a connection between the bride and the groom. It's meant to symbolize their new life together. So I'll give you an example of this that's sometimes performed at a wedding. It's called a covenant of salt. And that's where the bride and the groom bring their own salt to the ceremony. They pour their salt together into one vessel. This symbolizes the joining of their lives together and the idea that in order to dissolve their marriage, they would first have to separate their grains of salt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's many rites of passage such as this that can be incorporated into a marriage ceremony. If you're already married, this is what I was hinting at before, and you didn't do any of these rites of passage in your wedding, well, then maybe you could incorporate them into your next anniversary, or maybe into, maybe you're planning on doing a renewal of vows, and you can take some of these rites of passage and go ahead and do them. Yeah. But, the big idea is, it's finding a way to do some of these things that help you to visualize the new life that you're entering together. And like creating that connection piece, just like the blood connected Aaron and his sons and the altar. It's finding ways to establish that connection between two single people as they become one and help them to visualize that now they are a new life. They're starting a new life and a new adventure together. Yeah,
they're no longer two people. Now they're one. And so because of that, now they need to be thinking that they're one and coming together as that one person. So again, go back and maybe look and be like, okay, what can we go ahead and do for our anniversary? Do we want to incorporate maybe a ketubah, or maybe we want to renew our vows and restate our vows because maybe you weren't walking with God when you originally got married and now you are walking with God and you're like, I want to be able to renew my vows and be like, okay, God, I'm giving you, this is my covenant marriage. This is my relationship now with my spouse, and I want to go ahead and honor you and respect you. And this is what we're going to go ahead and do. This is what we're agreeing to go ahead and have in our relationship and in our marriage.
Yeah. And for you singles, this is a great discussion to go ahead and have to find, like when you get married, some of these rites of passage that are meaningful to both of you. You don't want to just do them because they have no meaning for you, but if you can see the symbolism and the meaning, behind these, and they're going to help you to establish that connection and be able to look back. It's kind of the idea, the Hebrew word is zikaron. It's from the root zakar, which means to remember. Zikaron is a memorial. And it's like having that memorial of the connection that you made. Now for the priests, the altar was the visual memorial for them of that blood connection that they made, or that their ancestors, Aaron and his sons, had made when the altar was established. But having that thing that you can look on and make you remember the covenant, the agreement, the connection.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's true.
The last thing that we'll talk about here is at the end of chapter 8. It's going to be verse 33 through the end. And it says, "Do not go outside the door of the tent of appointment." This is speaking to Aaron and his sons in their days of ordination. "Do not go outside the door of the tent of appointment for 7 days until the days of your ordination are completed, for he fills your hands for 7 days. Adonai has commanded to do as he has done this day to make atonement for you. And stay at the door of the tent of appointment day and night for 7 days, and you shall guard," there's that word shamar, "you shall guard the duty of Adonai and not die, for so I have been commanded." And Aaron and his sons did all the words that Yah commanded by the hand of Moshe.
Yeah, so it's a matter of how do you spend time with God? That's sort of the takeaway that we have this is, how do you spend time with God? Do you sit and listen to him? Do you have a quiet time with him that you are just sitting and being quiet, not talking, not listening to music, but actually quiet? Do you journal possibly and just make your prayers out to God? What is it that you go ahead and do, and how do you spend time with him? because that relationship is the most important one that we have with any person. And so we want to go ahead and make that first. So how are you spending time with God? Are you setting that time aside, or are you allowing the busyness of life to get in the way?
Yeah. And taking that and jumping off from that to our, human covenant relationships, are you making the time to sit and listen to your spouse?
Yeah.
Just at the end of your work days, when you come back together, or maybe in the morning before you go off to work, are you taking the time to just sit and listen, to ask simply, is there anything that you'd like to talk about? Is there anything going on? I want to hear the things that are going on with you and what you're thinking about, what's your struggle going, like right now.
Yeah.
Just taking the time to sit and listen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So, Parsha Zav, wow, it's, as its name suggests, it's filled with many commands, or mitzvot, that outline procedures to follow, both for the priests and those who bring the offerings. But studying these chapters of Vayikra, of Leviticus, through the lens of relationship, it's allowed us to uncover many lessons to help us have meaningful, successful relationships, both with Elohim and with humans. We looked at the necessity of keeping the fire burning in our relationships. That's done by searching for and providing the fuel for the flames. The instructions for the peace offering provided a jumping off point so that we could discuss appreciating others, expressing appreciation in the most meaningful ways possible. We also studied the ordination of Aaron and his sons as priests to Elohim, which gave us opportunity to look at rites of passage in our marriage ceremonies or renewing of vows, the things that would help us to establish connections to each other and visualize our new life together, and also be able to look back at and remember the vows and the connection that we shared. And then we just finished by looking at the time that Aaron and his sons spent sitting and listening in the tabernacle complex, contemplating the things that they are embarking on. And just looking at that and taking the time to sit and listen to Elohim, as well as sitting and listening to our spouse, our family, our other relationships. It's giving them our time. It's being available to them, and also seeking them out and pursuing them. It's going both ways. So, it's all these things and more. We found these in Parsha Zav as we study the scriptures, focusing on the ways they teach us to have the kinds of relationship that Elohim desires for us, his children. So that's why we're going through, these Torah portions, looking at relationships, because that's the most important thing out there. But it's definitely looking at it in the right way. Correct.
And so we're glad you're here. We're glad that you have joined us, to be able to look at the Torah portion through the lens of relationships. It is a different way of looking at it, but it sure has been a lot of fun doing it, the last couple weeks and the last couple months. And again, make sure you like and subscribe so you get notified of when we have new videos coming out. And we hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.
Shalom.